Atomic habits. Chapter own. Good habits produce results that multiply rapidly, like money that grows through compound interest. Whether good or bad, habits compound. Positive compounding occurs in terms of productivity, knowledge, and relationships. Negative compounding can be seen in terms of stress, negative thoughts, and outrage. Productivity compounds. When you accomplish one extra task on any given day, it seems small on that day. But when it is considered over an entire career, it counts. As you automate some tasks, your brain gains freedom to think on more important things. By becoming a lifelong learner, you leverage on the compounding ability of knowledge. Reading challenges you to think differently and opens you up to new ideas. Growing in kindness also produces compound interest in terms of your relationships. People are predisposed to helping a person who has been kind to them. Also, stress compounds. Little stressors may seem isolated at first, but over time, they compound into serious health issues. Parenting, traffic jams, a slight increase in blood pressure, etc. are common sources of worry. Worrying then compounds into bigger problems. Negative thought compounds. Accumulating thoughts that don't enhance life will create a negative reality for you. Be mindful of how you think of yourself and others. Outrage compounds. Often, it is a combination of microaggressions that burst into protests and civil unrest. But we like to pin it on a single event, as if it were isolated. Small changes appear insignificant until it reaches a tipping point or threshold. This threshold is known as the plateau of latent potential. To get the results you seek, you need patience. In this summary, you'll find a simple but effective strategy that will take you from where you are to where you expect to be in your life. Anyone can apply these principles to any aspect of their life that requires transformation. Did you know? According to James Clear, a daily improvement or retrogression of one will leave you 37 times better or worse at the end of a year. Chapter 2. Breaking a bad habit is an arduous task. It is extremely difficult to build good habits, and perhaps more difficult to break bad ones. Difficult, but not impossible. In fact, there is a hack. Instead of focusing on the final outcome or goal you seek to achieve, which may seem so far off, spend time on creating an effective system that allows you to make progress toward the goal. Goals tell you where you want to go, and systems show you how to get there. Anyone can set goals, but those who achieve these goals are those that have created a good strategy for reaching the goals. What separates winners from losers is the system of continuous small improvements that the winners implement, which help them to achieve their goal. James Clear. Goals are transient. Everyone wants results, but problems often resurface with this type of mindset. Lasting change comes from creating the right process and automating procedures. The excitement that comes from achieving goals is often short-lived. Also, people with a goals-first mentality put off their happiness for a future time. With a systems-first mentality, you enjoy every step that leads up to the goal. When you enjoy what you do, you are more likely to repeat it. A systems-first mentality frees you from a straitjacketed approach to achieving your goals. Sometimes, life happens and you have to make a detour on your road to success. A good system adjusts readily to new situations while keeping the destination in mind. Goals often get in the way of creating processes that are sustainable. Old habits return when there is nothing to sustain you beyond the achievement of a goal. If you set a goal of losing 20 pounds, for example, there are a number of ways you can achieve that goal. However, You may revert to old habits after hitting the 20-pound mark because you did not create an effective system that helps you with your weight management. You're not simply playing to win one game, but to become a true champion. Atomic habits create true champions. Just as atoms are the building blocks of molecules, atomic habits help you create systems that work. Chapter 3. Changing who you are is more important than focusing on what you want to achieve because it makes the change sustainable. There are 2 reasons for the difficulties we face in changing our habits. We try to change the wrong things. We try to change in the wrong way. There are 3 layers of behavioral change: outcome, process, and identity. Outcomes are about what you get. Processes are about what you do. Identity is about what you believe. When it comes to building habits that last, the problem is the direction of change. Character change should be your focus, not achievement. A change in belief must precede a change in behavior. Who you are is more important than what you do. When a habit becomes who you are, rather than something you do, you are more likely to retain that habit. Take some time to think about who you want to be. Then ask yourself what you must do to become that person. Behavior is often a response or an outward manifestation of identity. Challenge your existing beliefs to grow into the best version of yourself. Cognitive slumber is when you follow the norms you grew up to know without challenging these narratives. You will change as far as you become aware of the scripts you are acting out in your life and change them. For example, you are not bad at math. You've only been conditioned by your experience to think math is not for you. Over time, you gathered evidence from your grades that reinforced the belief that you're bad at math. Shifting your thinking or belief about math creates a new reality for you. Your activities can help you change your identity for the better. Chapter 4. The concept of identity-based habits is better understood in terms of feedback loops. Habits and identity feed into each other. It is a two-way street. However, it is important to spend more time on the side of identity than results. If you put your values in the driver's seat of your life vehicle, your results will align with your beliefs. The most important value of habits is that they have the power to change what you believe about yourself. In an experiment with cats, psychologist Edward Thorndike found that when certain behaviors are rewarding, they are repeated, but when they produce unpleasant results, they are avoided. Habit formation begins with trial and error. A habit is a repeated behavior that the brain has automated because it found it rewarding. They exist as leverage to help you conserve energy. Habits are mental shortcuts learned from experience. As habits are created, the level of activity in the brain decreases. You learn to lock in on the cues that predict success and tune out everything else. James Clear. By automating the basic things in life, you create mental space for yourself. Creativity comes from creating room for thinking in your brain. When there is room for new thoughts, you can come up with plans and ideas with better reach and substance. Developing habits creates extra time that you can use to do things you want. Chapter 5. The Habit Loop explains that all habits are formed in a 4-stage procedure: cue, craving, response, and reward. When something triggers the brain to elicit a behavior, it is a cue. Once triggered, you begin to crave the behavior. Until you respond to this craving, your emotions will continue to be all over the place. Responding to the craving gets you a reward. What is rewarded gets repeated, and the habit loop is formed. The goal of every habit is the reward it provides. The cue shows you the reward. Then you crave the reward. By responding, you put in the work to get the reward. Rewards serve us in 2 ways: satisfaction, teaching. All 4 stages: cue, Craving, response, and reward must be present for a behavior to form. They can be partitioned into two: the problem phase, the cue, and the craving; the solution phase, the response and the reward. To build good habits, there are 4 laws of behavior change that you can follow. Make it obvious. Make it attractive. Make it easy. Make it satisfying. Inverting these laws also serves to eliminate bad habits. Make it disappear. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. Make it unrewarding. Chapter 6. You need to become aware of your habits because the process of behavior change starts with awareness. Practice trains your brain to identify the cues effortlessly. Many of us are unaware of how many activities our brains already automate. Hair growth, blood flow, breathing, digestion, etc. are automatic commands from the brain to the appropriate body parts. There is more to you than your conscious self. You can train your brain to automate good habits so that you don't have to pay attention to what you're doing. After a while, the cue becomes unnecessary. Your brain has learned to do the habit automatically. When something is a habit, you do it without conscious attention. Awareness is the first step to behavior change. Consider learning how to drive. At first, you are conscious of every little detail and find it difficult to multitask. But with practice, driving becomes automatic and you can execute multiple commands at the same time. Pointing and calling is a strategy that the Japanese railway system employs to minimize errors that can lead to accidents. The operators point at objects and call out commands as they do so. They call out every item and state what is to be done with it. This seemingly mundane activity lowers risks by bringing things that you were formerly unconscious of to your consciousness. Another important step to behavior change is to keep a habit scorecard. This scorecard contains a list of habits you practice daily, whether good, neutral, or bad. Neutral habits get the sign, while good habits get a sign and bad habits get a sign. Overall, if you get a positive score from adding all your habits, you have more positive habits, but a negative net score indicates a negative habit. Do not be in a hurry to change your habits at first. Observe and learn from the consequences of your choices before deciding what to do about them. Do not be in a hurry to change your habits at first. Observe and learn from the consequences of your choices before deciding what to do about them. Did you know? Studies show that pointing and calling reduces errors by up to 85 and cuts accidents by 30. Chapter 7. Implementation intention and habit stacking are 2 effective strategies that can help you initiate and stick to desired habits. Implementation intention is a statement of the time and location for a future action. The implementation intention formula is I will behavior at time in location. While there are many cues for your actions, the 2 most common cues are time and location. Implementation intentions leverage on both of these cues. Habit stacking requires you to pair habits that are compatible with each other, especially a new habit with an existing habit. You can attach your morning coffee to reading the news. It's easier to learn a new habit when you attach it to an existing one. A whole chain of habits can form from nailing down the fundamentals of habit stacking. Essentially, it says, I will do this new habit whenever I do a specific existing habit. Habit stacking is effective when you select the right cue to begin the chain. With habit stacking, you don't have to bother about time and location. The existing habit has built in those details. The strategies discussed in this chapter are effective ways to apply the first law of behavior change. The cues they create are vivid, and a correct application makes it easy to elicit the new behavior. Your environment often leads you to make certain choices that betray your identity. In a subtle way, your environment can make you behave in specific ways. This idea was conceptualized by psychologist Kurt Lewin in 1936 when he wrote an equation that defines behavior as a function of a person in their environment. PFP. Less than 20 years later, an economist found that the same principle applies to advertising. His name is Hawkins Stern. Stern found that seeing a product for the first time can make shoppers create a need in their minds for the product. He called the phenomenon suggestion impulse buying. Chapter 8. Every living being has its own methods for sensing and understanding the world. Humans perceive through the sensory nervous system. Of all our senses, vision is the strongest. Sight takes up 10 million of the 11 million sensory receptors in humans. The good thing is that you can create an environment where you see what you want to see. You can make a habit desirable by creating visual cues for it. The same strategy that encourages bad habits can be used to promote good habits. It is more likely to form a habit when there are multiple triggers in your surroundings for the habit. Self-control needs an enabling environment to thrive. People who reportedly have high self-control have been found by scientists to be people who have designed their lives to avoid cues that may make them lose control. Rearrange your environment to produce the results you seek in your life. Self-control works when you find yourself in a compromising situation unexpectedly. When you have to muster strength daily to resist temptations, it is only a matter of time before you fall into it. Optimize your environment to save your willpower for when it is really needed. That environment includes the online world these days. Chapter 9. The brain responds readily to attractive opportunities. Scientists can track the precise moment a craving occurs by measuring a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is vital to habit formation. Most addictive substances release a high dose of dopamine. Hence, they are difficult to break. Regular activities like drinking water, having sex, and eating also release dopamine. The anticipation of a reward has a stronger hold on the brain than the reward itself. The portions of the brain that are involved in anticipating reward include the brainstem, the nucleus accumbens, the ventral tegmental area, the dorsal striatum, the amygdala, and portions of the prefrontal cortex. It is the anticipation that elicits every action. Doing something you love, along with a behavior that makes that behavior attractive, is a process known as temptation bundling. Temptation bundling is an application of Premack's principle. It states that more probable behaviors will reinforce less probable behaviors. Our cultural context determines the behaviors we like. Our innate desire to belong to a group or a tribe makes us embrace behaviors that the group praises. This group can be people we admire, people who share the same background as us, or our close relations. People imitate the habits of their friends, the tribe, and the powerful ones. Group behavior often trumps individual behavior. If a person who isn't a bully keeps bullies as friends, they may end up becoming bullies themselves to appear cool to the group. Frequency is more important than duration when it comes to habit formation. Repeated practice is better than elaborate planning and implementation when you want to develop a habit. The third law of behavioral change is to make it easy. Doing something many times means you should do a little at a time. To ensure you continue along the path of forming a new habit, remove as many obstacles to its practice as possible by ensuring it is something you can complete within a short time. Apply the 2-minute rule. It states that every new habit should take less than 2 minutes to complete. The time should increase only after you've mastered it. Do the opposite for habits you want to stop. Make the practice difficult. If you restrict your access to the cues for the habit, you will eventually remove them from your life. Chapter 10. Do not delay rewards for good habits if you want them to stick. When we derive satisfaction from an activity, we are going to repeat the behavior. The human brain evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed rewards. Having an accountability partner can help to demand penalties for habits you want to stop. Humans tend to seek the approval of others. Thus, we want to keep the social contacts we make. It is easier to make progress when the habit you're forming aligns with your values and that does not require you to do things you know nothing about. Your motivation is highest when you work on tasks that challenge you, but you're skilled to perform. This challenge is important because we tend to lose interest in things that are boring and routine. Satisfaction comes from surmounting some form of obstacle. Deliberate practice keeps you sharp and opens your eyes to errors that routine may not see.